footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bring you our preview of the 2013 Alamo Bowl between the Texas Longhorns and the Oregon Ducks. Now let's take a look at some keys to victory for both teams, starting with Texas. The Texas Longhorns enter this bowl game with an 8-4 record, and also Mack Brown will be coaching his final game in Austin. This team will want to send him out on top. Now versus Oregon, offensively, the key for Texas is to play their game and not to try to play Oregon's game. Stay within the framework of your offense and try to out-execute rather than outscore the Ducks, because quite honestly, if you're executing, you're scoring. Defensively, I look at the linebackers and defensive backs playing in space. Oregon will try to spread the field and make it a horizontal game, and the back seven has to excel in space in both the running game as well as in the passing game in order for Texas to have any type of success in the Alamo Bowl. Now let's move over to Oregon in this ball game, and the Ducks come into the Alamo Bowl sporting a 10-2 record, and versus Texas, I look at the basis of the Oregon offense, and it's the running game with Byron Marshall and also D'Anthony Thomas, and they're a spread team with power running concepts. I think that's what they have to do, and that's what they have to establish early versus Texas. Once that happens, then everything else off of that has a chance to go for chunk plays versus the Longhorn. Defensively, the defensive line will face a test similar to Stanford as far as size and style is concerned, which is why I believe it's equally as important to take care of business in the trenches. The Ducks can also get extra aggressive in their pressure packages versus Case McCoy to try to force quick throws so that way they can rally up, make the tackle, and get off the field. The X factor for the Longhorns will be their ability to finish offensive drives. We saw versus Baylor, they struggled to move the football with consistency. If they can string together a lot of good plays and also good drives, they have a great shot in this ballgame because their defense can compete with the Ducks' speed, but they have to put together some drives on offense and come away with points. The X factor for the Ducks will be their pressure in the secondary. I love the matchup between this secondary versus the Texas Longhorns wide receivers. Now look at what they can do on the corners. They can man up. The safeties can get out there in space and man up on the slot wide receivers. And I think if they're going to win this game, it's going to be because their secondary was able to take away the Texas passing game. I think that's why this is a big X factor for Oregon. Now here are some coaching points for both teams in this ball game. For Texas, they have to win on the perimeter defensively. Make this a vertical game and not a horizontal game. Otherwise, you're going to be playing losing defense. And also on that defense, I look at cornerback Quandre Diggs versus Josh Huff. Diggs is going to have to win that battle more often than not. And on the offensive side of football, you want to make this a boring game by chewing up the TOP with the running game, making short, quick, efficient passes in the passing game, moving the sticks by any means necessary. And if they can make this a boring game, the Longhorns can knock off Oregon. And for Oregon in this ball game, they have to keep Texas guessing defensively. This is something they've done all season long very well. And if they can do the same versus Texas, they can have a lot of success, because I'm pretty sure the Longhorns will try to come in and get over-aggressive in that first quarter and a half to try to slow down this offense. But if they stay the course and keep these guys guessing, like I said, they can have a lot of success. And I would also go with more zone blitzing of Case McCoy. He's a see-it-throw it type of a passer. You can influence him into some bad decisions and get that ball back for that explosive offense. You have to win alone that defensive line. We spoke about this before. Those interior defensive linemen in that 3-4 has to be able to control the line of scrimmage, so the speed and athleticism at the linebackers with Boseko Lukambo can make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage and get Texas off the field. Now here are some 2014 draft prospects you want to keep an eye on in this ball game. For Texas, Jackson Jeffcoat seems like he's been there forever. 6'5", 250. He's going to have a big game this week versus Oregon. And also look at wide receiver Mike Davis. Big fan of his game. Silky smooth route runner. Also has deceptive speed and can catch in traffic. And look at the two cornerbacks, Carrington Bindum and also Quandre Diggs. Again, two guys that will have to have big games. And very underrated offensive linemen as always. Texas has some great offensive line prospects, Trey Hopkins and Donald Hawkins. As for Oregon, there's always a boatload of talent on this roster, and there's two guys that are not on this list because they've already decided to go back to school, and that's quarterback Marcus Mariota and a cornerback Ifo Ekpe-Olumu. When we look at the rest of these guys, still have a boatload of talent at the disposal of NFL scouts and personnel decision makers. Running back D'Anthony Thomas can score from anywhere on the field. Don't let the size fool you. This guy can make it happen. And I'm also a big fan of Josh Huff, a guy that can play on the outside as well as in the slot. And linebacker Boseko Lukambo is a guy that also has CFL prospects available at his disposal as well. And when you look all the way down, you look at the defensive tackles, Taylor Hart and Wade Killakippy. Those two players, one, will have to have big games versus Texas, but they're outstanding prospects moving forward. The 1995 Alamo Bowl was between Michigan and Texas A&M. Both teams came into this ball game at 9-3. And Aggies' defensive pressure gave quarterback Brian Griese and an explosive Wolverine offense fits all day long as they held Michigan to 9 out of 23 passing. Meanwhile, after a first quarter touchdown, A&M's kicker Kyle Bryant was the star of the show, going 5 for 5 as the Aggies knocked off Michigan 22-20. In the 1949 Orange Bowl, the Texas Longhorns took on the Georgia Bulldogs, and this was a back-and-forth game between the Longhorns and Georgia, and Texas' ground game was excellent all game long, rushing for over 330 yards, led by fullback Tom Landry. Yes, that Tom Landry, who rushed for 117 yards, and the Longhorns were able to pull away late 41-28. After a 26-year bowl absence, the Ducks made a great splash return versus Tulsa in the 1989 Independence Bowl, and led by quarterback Bill Musgrave, Oregon was able to knock off the Golden Hurricane 27-24 behind Musgrave's outstanding game as he was named the game's MVP. Before he became one of the best cornerbacks in NFL history, Jerry Gray was one of the best cornerbacks in Texas Longhorn history, a two-time first-team All-American, and finished his career with over 290 tackles and 16 career interceptions. And sticking with the defensive back theme, Alex Molden is definitely a campus legend for the University of Oregon, a two-time All-Pac-10 performer, also a two-time All-American, played there from 1991 to 1995, and his stellar play led him to be a first-round selection of the New Orleans Saints in 1996. I like Oregon in this ballgame, although it would be a great feel-good story to have Mack Brown go out on top. The Oregon Ducks are too explosive offensively, and I think they'll do a great job in spreading out that Texas defense and forcing these guys to make plays in space consistently. And on the defensive side of football, I think they'll do a great job in applying pressure, and they'll be able to force some turnovers. So I like the Oregon Ducks to walk away the 2013 Alamo Bowl champions.